Gotcha.
We reached out to them. And then we ended
No,
up
not doing that.
else.
Hey, everybody. Hi.
No.
Hey, Rosetta. Let me. Yeah.
Hey.
We're gonna give it just a couple more minutes, guys, to let people trickle in. This grades don't match.
Donuts. Hi.
Hello.
Yes.
No, I'm just promoting it, friend. That's good. And just, whatever. No, I got some coming up, just got, but it's, yeah, like, say it's about 3 and 3. But it's one's overseas, one's here, one's name's not even on the deed, and it's, of course, the complications we make it up. I can't just let
Good
something,
morning, everybody.
but yeah, it's coming.
Can somebody tell you, can you hear me? Hi, East Lake, somebody coming.
Yeah, it'll be okay.
Yeah. Okay. No, we're gonna go there.
Oh, you have anything going on? I mean, I have.
I see the chat.
Oh, no, girl, you don't need to tell me. I mean, I already have one under contract, actually, but it's. In April, new construction, but.
My goodness, on time room. Are y'all sure you're realtors?
I'll tell you later, yeah, super
It's not 7.
easy transaction, well, not easy, but I mean,
I love y'all. Yeah.
I met this person one time and I helped her with something and she was watching me and it's my neighbor's daughter. And she's referring me to people and it's just. And actually, I have 7. If I have another buyer, I'm waiting. I hope so. Hey, Alan.
How's it going?
Yeah, oh, I have, right? I'm probably your listing. Yesterday, I'm like, I'm sitting, I'm the one who texted you. I'm like, here, you don't even know what it looks like, sorry. It's cool, right?
All right, good morning, everybody.
Good.
Thank y'all for coming out to our class today. My name is
Oh, I
Amy
should.
Spading for, I think I will.
Yes.
But my name is Amy Spading and this is Jake Ashland. He's another one of our attorneys. He's actually up in the North Atlanta office, but he is coming to tag team this with me today to cover a couple of topics. I do have my contact information up on the board, and these are the topics that we're gonna cover here today. So this is the group email. It goes to all of us. So if I'm out of the office or whatnot, that's gonna be the best one to get somebody from our team. It's just kwcn@mmg.law. My email directly, and then this is my cell number. If y'all have ever gotten my business card, that's my work line. I'll answer that, but it's best to hit me on my cell phone. It's a lot faster response time. But we'll go ahead and get started. I'm gonna let Jake cover his topics first. That's gonna be the bankruptcy, foreclosure, eminent domain, and tax sales, and then I'll finish it up. Once he has to leave, instead I can go up to our operator office. And I'll cover divorce, death, and finance.
Awesome.
If y'all have questions, just let us know. Stop it. And people on chat, just try to keep a lookout for any chat that y'all have.
That's great. Not a huge deal, but. All right, well, I'm Jake Kaplan and closing attorney with Michael Gray. And, you know, I always want to start this class off by just talking about just by having the knowledge of the legal process, you can find a lot of business, right? There are various ways that we're going to discuss today where if you know kind of the way things work, you can meet investors, you can meet, you can find neighborhoods to farm, right? You can find prospects. And so this is gonna be an extremely important class, I think, and an extremely valuable class. So I'll leave it open. All right, so I'm gonna talk about first foreclosures and tax sales. Who has ever attended a foreclosure or tax sale auction? Okay, that's more than usual, right? So foreclosures, of course, are when someone is in default of a mortgage that they have in place on a property, right? And the property is being sold on the courthouse steps, right? Now, let me tell you a little bit of the mechanics of how that works. Basically, a bunch of people line up. They have to have cashier's checks, usually in $50,000 denominations, right? And they have to bid on properties. There's actually a guy who's doing an auction. It's really exciting to attend if you ever have the opportunity. But who knows of any other place where you have hundreds of people with cash money, right? Who are interested in buying real estate, or they're self-identifying. Is there any other place on planet Earth like that? No, right? So, I was, in last May, I had to renew my notary, so I was at the DeKalb County Courthouse. And literally, there was about 200 people there bidding on properties. Yes, there's gonna be some people from hedge funds, right? Probably gonna be difficult to get those people to use you, but there are investors who are buying foreclosure, right? Or at least bidding on it, right? And then 10 yards away from where all these people are standing, there's a Waffle House. So when I was there, I was literally thinking, how hard would it be for a realtor to come here, right? Offer to run comps for people, right? Take some of these investors to coffee at the Waffle House, pay a couple dollars for a cup of coffee. And the pitch that you would give them would be, if I find you a good deal, would you be interested? Who thinks that the answer to that question would be yes, right? They're standing, they took time out of their day, they put money in $50,000 checks, right? And they're standing to bid on a property that they might not even win. You see what I'm saying? This is very low hanging fruit, right? If I were you guys, the number one thing that I would do is go to the foreclosure auctions, be a regular there, meet the people who are there, you know, offer value, offer to run comps, right? Sometimes people want tenants, maybe perhaps you can provide a connection to a management company. You know, offer value, and I promise you, you know, it's very low hanging fruit. There's not a lot of realtors who are there, right? So it's not like you're gonna have a lot of competition. If I was a realtor, this is the number one thing that I would do to increase my business. All right? At the same time as the foreclosure auction, there are tax costs. Who knows what a tax sale is? What is it?
It's when somebody falls behind on the taxes and the town is coming and letting
Right.
function about that.
Right. And so after you buy a property through a tax sale, you get title with a tax deed, which is a less, absolute conveyance, right? It's subject to a right of redemption. So for the first year, they can redeem the property, right? And pay the money with interest to get the property back. Now, some of the wealthiest people that I know invest in tax sales, right? And it's a numbers game. You know, let's say you invest in 100 tax sales, you're probably gonna get the property on maybe 5, right? But just imagine this, somebody is delinquent, right, in taxes for about 10 grand, let's say. You buy a tax deed around, 20 grand, something like that, right? And then, you eventually, you have to file a title action. It takes some time, but eventually you get a property that's worth maybe $100,000, $200,000. for, 20 to 30 grand, right? So, I would talk to those people because they're very smart. Usually they own a lot of real estate, right? They have, tenants, they're gonna have needs for a realtor. Same pitch. If I find you a good deal, would you be interested? Right? And this happens every Tuesday. I would start off, my advice is going to the major counties, so DeKalb, Gwinnett, Fulton, right, Cobb. The more people who live in the county, the more inventory there's gonna be, probably the more investors who are gonna come to the foreclosure auction to the tax sales. The other thing that you can do, if anyone knows anything about the foreclosure process or the tax sale, right? Part of it is you have to advertise the sale in the paper, right? So in Fulton County, for example, these advertisements are gonna be called, advertised in a newspaper called the Fulton County Daily Report, right? And, so they have to advertise for 4 weeks at a minimum before they, auction off the property. Now, most people these days are not underwater on their mortgage, right? Underwater meaning what they owe is not more than the property, right? And so, these are great prospects for listings. The pitch to them would be, I saw your home was being advertised for foreclosure. If we can list your property, there's a chance that you could avoid foreclosure, avoid that black mark kind of on your credit, and get some money, right? A lot of foreclosure lenders, if you present them a bound bona fide offer, will call off the foreclosure sale. Foreclosures are expensive for foreclosure lenders, right? And so, I would be getting, especially the, newspaper that's right after the first Tuesday of the month, right? The first issue after the first Tuesday of the month, I would be checking that. I would be trying to get in touch with those people, right? And, if you have investors, those are great that you work with already. These are great prospects so that you can get on both sides of the deal. Yes.
With the tax sales, let's say that it's 10,000 in delinquent taxes. Are you saying that people will buy it for like 20 grand, like double the tax? So does that
It's
mean,
an auction.
does that mean that the owner has to pay you $20,000 to get their house
Get
back,
your money.
basically?
You get your money back, plus interest, right, whatever the interest is on the tax.
So, geez, if someone almost have to pay double their taxes, essentially?
No,
In some cases.
basically, the money's gonna be held in trust by the sheriff's office, right? And, if the tax lien is redeemed, right? Then, you get that money redeemed, meaning they pay back their tax. They don't have to pay anything.
They pay the
They only
10,000?
have to pay what they owe plus interest,
Okay,
right? If that happens, then you get your money back plus the interest that's accrued. See what I'm saying?
yeah.
Owner needs to pay this. So the person that's holding it, the sheriff's office, is that who gives them his money back
Yes,
plus interest?
yes,
So the seller or the homeowner only has to pay their portion of taxes plus interest.
that's right,
And then the sheriff's office.
Yeah, it's an
pays back the
auction.
rest.
Right.
right? So you could be bidding against people for the same property, and the county's gonna wanna clear as much as possible, right? So that's why they might owe 10,000, you might wind up winning with a $20,000 bid. These are all hypothetical numbers.
Right.
But, if it does get redeemed, the county doesn't get to keep both the tax money that they got and what you bid. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah.
Yeah.
So does that person, do they get to stay in the house? The person that, the homeowner, do they get to live in the house for that year,
Well,
that
so
they
just,
get.
just kind of how the mechanics of how it works. You know, when you own a property after a tax deed, you own it to feasible interest. So that's less than a fee simple interest, which is the full ownership. So if you own a property with a defeasible interest, you have no right to evict someone. You gotta have a fee simple interest in the property to evict. So really the way that it works, you know, I suppose there are some properties where they're vacant, right? But most of the time, the person is gonna stay until a quiet title action has gone through at the end of the right of redemption. Does that make sense?
Or they don't pay and they're gonna get out.
Yes,
You said that period is 2 years?
1 year,
1 year. So it buys them a year
yeah,
to stay there
right, well, you know,
and to get them or to find money.
yeah, the final, exactly,
At that point, they're almost behind on 2 years of taxes, I would assume.
that's right,
Right?
yeah, there could be, further delinquent taxes and all that, right?
Are they able to work something out at some point where it's like a payment? Is it if they can make any kind of
I've
payment?
I've seen more creative solutions, like in Fulton County usually, right, is you're gonna see more times where, the county's trying to work with indigent people, there's gonna be negotiations, various exemptions are gonna apply. I would say it just depends on the property, right? It depends what the homeowner has done proactively to get these programs kind of into place. Does that make sense?
Yeah, so it's kind of like a buy and hold, because you can't really do anything with it
You can't do
until
anything.
that year is up.
You gotta wait till the year is up, and then you've gotta file a quiet title action, you know, typical cost for a quiet title action is around $5,000, right? But, you know, then again, at the end of the day, if you bid on 100 properties, you're getting your money with interest at a minimum, right? At a maximum, you're getting a piece of real estate, you know, there's a time investment. Right? Most people don't have the patience to kind of deal with it this way. But at the end of, you know, the time period, you're getting a property for pennies on the dollar. See what I'm saying? So that's why people,
Or you're earning money.
yes.
What happens if there's any liens?
So, the tax lien is in first priority position. That's why if you have a mortgage, if you default on the mortgage, you know, they're still gonna pay the taxes, right? Because they don't wanna be, subject and kind of, undercut by a tax, right? And so, you know, generally, you know, after you buy a property at a tax sale, you go through the quiet title action. The quiet title action is where you go to the court and you say, I'm in a first priority position. I own this property and I want you to, by court order, dismiss all of the junior liens on this property and give me fee simple title, full ownership. Does that make sense? Yes.
I'm sorry, I have
No, you're
another
fine.
question.
Yeah, yeah,
Okay,
yeah.
so you're saying it's advertised for 4 weeks
Yes.
before it can go up for sale?
Yes, that's
Right.
foreclosure.
And then, oh, not for the tax,
For both.
okay, for both. And so we are able to approach that homeowner in that 4-week period
Yeah, and in a tax
and
sale.
say,
you-
hey, let us try and sell your house and maybe we can help you out of this bind or
Yeah, and in
something.
a tax sale, you can even do it after, you can do it during the year,
Oh, Anytime in that year,
yeah,
where they can still
because
pay
they can
off their
still have a
debts.
right to redemption, you know what I mean?
Okay,
So,
bingo.
And how would you know who, I guess you just follow that list to see who, how would you know if it got sold on the courthouse steps and that somebody's holding it for 12? You have to provide.
but you could do a title search, right, on a property, or just come to us, request a title search, right?
When
Yeah,
you do a title search, though, what would it show up in that year?
you would see a tax deed,
It would see a tax deed.
yeah,
If you
You're saying as a real
or just tell us, we could do an online search and say if we see a tax deed, right? You know, but again, you know, you're gonna wanna get in touch with the homeowner, right? And say, I see your home recently sold at a tax sale, I see your home, is being advertised for foreclosure, right? If I can bring you a good offer where you can walk away with money and not have a foreclosure on your credit, report, right? You know, when you get a foreclosure or when you do a short sale, you can't buy a home and get a mortgage for 3 years. right? So, if you can provide that value of someone avoiding that, getting out of that house, with some money in their pocket to move and that kind of thing, you're providing those people with real value, right? Now, a lot of those people, people going through foreclosure are depressed, they're not gonna be the easiest people to work with, I wanna say that. But I will tell you, it's low hanging fruit. So if you're looking for listings, right? This is stuff that, you can get, you should be able to get, for sure. Any questions about any of that?
And that's in the newspaper,
Yes.
the actual like real newspaper?
So it's like in Fulton County, it's gonna be like a legal newspaper. So in Fulton County, it's the Fulton County Daily Report. I think DeKalb is called the DeKalb Reporter, right? Gwinnett has a paper, every county is gonna have a paper where they do these listings, right? And, really what you wanna do is the first Tuesday of the month, right? That's when the auctions occur. You wanna see the next issue of that paper, because that's gonna give you the most time, right? Between, the first advertisement and the foreclosure auction. Does that make sense? Make something happen, to get in touch with the people, to have title work, to maybe have a closing, to get a payoff. The closer you get to the foreclosure auction, the more difficult it gets to close. So you wanna give yourself time. Make sense?
And those people normally have a lot of equity.
Most people have equity, that's the thing. It's not like 2008 to 2013 where people were underwater. That's not the case anymore, right? Most people have equity, you're having to put so much money down, home prices are going up and up. So it's fairly unusual now. I actually have 2 short sales going on right now, which is strange, because you don't really see that much anymore.
But that would help people that are buying that.
Right?
Have they just sell it?
Right.
That's what I do.
Yeah. You want me to do bankruptcy? Okay. All right, so, bankruptcy. I know a lot of realtors who work the bankruptcy process and get a lot of clients out of it. Some of the top realtors in Atlanta work with bankruptcy trustees, right? And so, who understands, has anyone ever worked on a bankruptcy closing? You've got one person. Basically, when you file for bankruptcy, you no longer own your property, right? Your property becomes part of a bankruptcy estate that's managed by a bankruptcy trustee, who's empowered by bankruptcy court, to the federal, right? One of the best people that you can meet in the real estate industry is a bankruptcy trustee. Their names are online, right? And they're gonna have a lot of listings. A lot of times, the bankruptcy court is gonna require that people sell their property, right? And, the bankruptcy trustee is gonna kind of be the conductor of that process. They're gonna choose the, real estate agent, right? So the benefits of working with a bankruptcy trustee are many. Number one, this is a professional person, right? Their only goal is to sell the property in a timely fashion and pay off the debts. Who thinks that's gonna be easier to work with than the average homeowner? It is, right?
They're pretty motivated.
They're gonna be motivated, yeah, exactly.
There's no emotions.
There's no emotions,
Yeah.
right?
There's numbers.
Yeah, it's just numbers. So, it's gonna be a really professional person. It's gonna be, I know of one who's a lawyer at a big firm, right? And, he directs, I think, 5 to 10 closings every month to a realtor that I'm aware of, very well-known realtor, right? Who would like to get 5 to 10 closings per month? Hey, so that sounds pretty nice, right? And so I would try to meet with these people. I would also try to meet with bankruptcy attorneys. Sometimes they're gonna have a little bit of a say of the various contractors who are being used in the process. Now, how do you do that, right? I would, make it a regular part of your business to take these people in the community out to coffee, out to lunch. I would do lunch and learns, bring Chick-fil-A to their office one day, right? Meet some of the attorneys, right? I can tell you, before I graduated law school, I interned with a family law attorney, which Amy's gonna talk about family law. But we had lunch and learns all the time with various contractors, with realtors, right? And a lot of times these people who have access to, this business, right? These properties that need to be sold, they're looking for people who are interested in working with them and who have a level of expertise, right? So do your research about the process, understand the process, but these are great people to have contact with. In addition to the bankruptcy business that you'd be getting, you're also talking to a bunch of attorneys, right? Attorneys generally do pretty well, right? And so, maybe not DNA, but some attorneys make a lot of money, right? And so, I would just tell you that, these are great contacts to have, right? And so, not just with bankruptcy, I would make it just a very regular part of your business to go get yourself out into your community, meet these kinds of professionals, right? And I can promise you that that's gonna pay off, right? You might, spend $50 on, 5 to 10 Chick-fil-A lunches for people. You'll make that back in spades, right? And, like I said, it's gonna be a really easy, sale for you. The bankruptcy court is gonna be most interested in the property moving quickly, right? That's gonna be the most pressing concern. The second concern is clearing the most money possible, but they're not gonna have these ideas about, oh, I think I did this to the kitchen. I want you to bump up the property value for $10,000 more than it's worth. They're gonna look at your CMA, they're gonna take your professional opinion, yes.
Who's a listing agreement with in these situations?
The bankruptcy trustee.
Okay, so they're the seller, I
They're
guess.
the seller.
Gotcha.
So it's a little easier. Now, sometimes you do have, the people who are still living there, right, until the sale is final. But the bankruptcy trustee, not you, is gonna be responsible for getting those people out, right? So, it's just, it's not a hard process on the realtor, in my experience. Any more questions about bankruptcy?
So the way to find the trustee is to go through
So just
the
Google
bankruptcy.
bankruptcy trustees, Northern District of
Okay,
Georgia.
okay.
It's on the
You went straight to
website,
them.
their name, their email, where they work, et cetera, right? I would also maybe, everyone knows somebody who's divorced. Chances are, everyone knows somebody who's gone through bankruptcy at some point, right? I would ask them, who is your trustee, right? And, figure out who that person was, approach them and say, I heard you did a great job as trustee for, this person that I know, and I would love to meet with you to discuss the bankruptcy process, right? Well, it's gonna take, let me treat you to coffee. And, just start off, get them into your network. It's not gonna be about, it can only be positive. Any other questions about bankruptcy?
So, question, this might be silly, but, I'm sure it's extremely hard to wedge your way in with these people because they probably already have a preferred agent.
They
So,
may or they may not, So, it's something you can't know unless you try.
They may
I would
not
try.
encourage it anymore if I wanted.
Okay, so the other thing I'm gonna talk about is, and I'll leave that up for Amy, is eminent domain. All right? So who knows about eminent domain? Right? So, for those that don't, eminent domain is the process by which a county or a city or the state even can take ownership of a property through the legal process, right? Without necessarily the owner's consent, right? And there can be any number of reasons why the county might want, or government entity might want to take a property, right? Sometimes there's gonna be economic development reasons. You know, one of the famous cases was to build an Intel plant, right? This happened in Massachusetts, they took someone's house. I can tell you, my brother lives in the Summer Hill neighborhood of Atlanta. And they're trying to build a park down there. And it's been like a 5-year process, right? And they've just eventually finally come to an agreement with the parties. Now, usually what happens is the county, city, state government doesn't want to take the property through eminent domain. They want the people to agree to sell the property. These are politicians, right? They don't want people to be angry with them, right? And so they're gonna try to make a good deal with you. Usually, when somebody buys a house, or sells their house to the government in kind of one of these eminent domain processes, right? They're selling for a high premium. So, I know, this is an example. In that Summer Hill neighborhood, there were a few holdouts, right? One of them bought their home 3 or 4 years ago for, I think, around $400,000. She wound up selling to the city of Atlanta for 1.2 million. Okay? So these are people with a lot of cash in hand, right? Once they sell their property to the city, who thinks they're gonna wanna be buying a new property? Right? So, these are good people for you to talk to provide value to, right? Tell them how much their property is worth, offer to run comps for them, right? The other thing, I'm sure we've all seen 285, right? 285, 400 intersection. They widen 285, they wiped out a bunch of properties, right? Those are people that I would approach. So those are areas I would farm, right? So who thinks if your home was maybe 100 yards from 285 and now it's 50 yards from 285, who thinks you might be interested in selling? Right? And so if you just pay attention to the news, if you pay attention to the government bulletins and proposed projects, right? These are people that I would approach, I would farm to get listings. So just by knowing what's going on in the news, knowing how the eminent domain process works, you can get a lot of clients from that process. So, all of these things are in the news. I was just reading the other day about another park that they're trying to build up here, right? Government is always trying to increase quality of life, and sometimes that involves the need to take someone's property and incorporate that into parks, to widen rights of way, right? Sometimes they want to assemble properties for economic development reasons, right? And so if you know kind of what's in the pipeline in your county, in your city, you can target those people and they're going to be interested in what you guys have to say, more so than the average person. Any questions about that? Yes.
If you list that home, who do you sell those homes to?
Just to a buyer, right?
But it's gonna be built by an extended, right?
Yeah, but somebody might, want to buy that, right? And also, just because something is closer to the highway doesn't mean necessarily that there's going to be a huge decrease in value, right? So, usually when people hear about, that their home is going to be closer to a road, to a highway, a lot of people, that's going to be a deal breaker for them. But there are people out there, we're in a housing shortage. Beggars can't be choosers, right? And so there are going to be interested buyers, I think. for those properties, just like any property. But, you know, the main reason, you know, if their home is being taken to incorporate into the road widening, those people are gonna have a lot of money, right, for their next property, right? So, you know, those are gonna be good prospects as buyers, better than the average prospect, right? A lot of cash on him, maybe cash buyers, right? Who likes cash buyers? All right, well, I think I need to head out. I'm gonna turn it over to Amy. I just wanna thank y'all, great to see y'all. Amy's cell phone is right there, but if you can't get Amy, feel free to reach out to me. Amy's amazing. What did you say? Yes, you don't mind? 770-653-9369. Her handwriting is much better than. All right, any questions before I head out? All right, well, pleasure seeing all of y'all, okay?
Thank you very much. Thank you.
All right, y'all, I'm gonna cover diamonds, divorce, and death. So I'll start with diamonds, because that's a little bit happier topic. But with people that are getting, engaged or they're already engaged, what could be a potential next thing that they're wanting to do? Buy a house. So with this, you're really gonna wanna build your network, and that's gonna really be for these next three topics. Jake's topics were a little bit different than these three, but you're really gonna wanna build your network. And that's the key for these. So if you know, either they've purchased a home while they're engaged, and then the wife has now changed her name, that's gonna be a way for you to reach out and put one of your touches to either previous clients or people that maybe even weren't your clients. But let them know you actually don't have to change your name on title right away. Right there, that's gonna be a touch to them. All right, are y'all looking to maybe upgrade? Sell your current home, buy a bigger home? Are you looking to have children in the future? That's one way to reach out to them, but a lot of people don't know that. You actually can purchase your home as Amy Blackman, stay in your house as Amy Blackman until you sell it. And on that deed, the closing attorney is going to just put Amy Smading, formerly known as Amy Blackman, on your deed, period. That's it. A lot of people don't realize that. I can't tell you how many phone calls that I get. Hey, I want to change my name on title. Okay, that's totally fine. We can do that. You're just gonna do an AKA and you're gonna deed it to yourself. The catch with that too, you wanna make sure that they realize if they do that, they need to refile for the homestead exemption. Any kind of deed that's changing names on title, doesn't matter if it's the same owners, you actually have to refile that homestead exemption. The county's not gonna look and investigate and see that, oh, the ownership didn't change, it's actually the same people. They're gonna see a deed recorded and that homestead exemption is going to fall off of it. So they have to refile. That's gonna be a really, really rude surprise the next tax year, when they get that tax bill and it's gone up. And it's actually still their homestead. A lot of people don't realize that, so that's a way for y'all to reach out to your clients. Another group to network with, wedding coordinators. They're gonna be the front line of people who are actually working with the couple. At that point, if they mention, hey, we're looking to buy a home, that's a great source. How many of y'all know personally, other than Nina and Terry, know any wedding coordinators here? Have y'all ever reached out to them about purchasing homes? It's an untapped source of people that you can network with. And I worked with one for my wedding. They're some of the friendliest people. Like you'll enjoy taking out to lunch, the coffee, to get a drink with. And I guarantee you, there's not that many realtors that they have in their network that, hey, who would you recommend for me to contact if we're looking to purchase a home coming up? You want to be top of mind for that. And there's a ton in the city of Atlanta, surrounding areas. There's a ton of wedding coordinators. Really, any of the vendors as well. As many people as you can get in your network with people that are either engaged, about to get engaged, that's a really big network. Yeah, that's one of the 3Ds that Leslie and Amy talk about all the time. Diamonds. It's a big, big opportunity there. Chances are probably our purchasing house coming up soon. Next one is gonna be a little bit more sad of a topic. We're gonna talk about divorce. How many of y'all know anyone that has been divorced or have been divorced yourselves? chances are everybody in this room knows somebody that's getting a divorce, been divorced. Most people in a divorce are represented by an attorney. It's just facts. You can do it unrepresented, especially if it's not as complicated of a divorce. There's no property in, there's no kids. A lot of times you can do it yourselves, especially if you're agreeing on the term of what you're gonna split, it's 50-50. But chances are you're gonna have divorce attorneys on both sides. The best thing that y'all can do for this, you're gonna hear me say this word probably 18 more times, network. Get to know the family law attorneys in the area. I worked at an estate planning attorney's office before I worked at McMichael and Gray. We had so many real, and I'll touch on divorce, or excuse me, death and probate in a little bit. We had so many realtors come into our office, bring donuts, bring some kind of snacks, do a lunch and learn, show your value to them. But for the family law attorney aspect, a lot of times, if you've ever looked through a divorce decree, typically there's a lot of times a sale of a property. They're gonna need a recommendation, a referral on someone to help list that property. Sometimes in the divorce decree itself, or in their settlement agreement, it'll actually list, this is the realtor that we agreed to list the property with. For, you know, a reasonable price, or if you've already set the price. But they actually will list that in the settlement agreement, that you agree to list the property with whatever realtor they both agree to. Get to know those family law attorneys. There's a ton of them in Atlanta. And the best part is that with the Georgia Bar website, most attorneys, and depending on what their specialty is, they will list within a section of the Georgia Bar. So I'm sure Jake is too. I'm in the real property law section of the Georgia Bar. There's a family law section, there's a probate section, there's an estate planning attorney section. Get to know them. And at the very least, you can always just Google. You can say family law attorneys in Peachtree Corners, family law attorneys in Vinings, family law attorneys in whatever cities you want to focus on, or whatever, you know, little areas or pockets you want to look at, look them up. But the easiest thing I think is maybe look up for the Georgia Bar, the different sections. Chances are they're listed within those sections, all the people within that specialty. But again, with a divorce, it's gonna typically be, you know, a sale of a property. A lot of times they may be doing a refinance to buy out the other party, but then the party who's leaving the home, they may need a home. So again, you're gonna have two different sides that you can focus on here. So there's gonna be two attorneys in that, you know, in that divorce. And with a divorce, I do kind of want to touch on a little bit, just on the title side, I won't go too far into it. But with a divorce, if y'all do have a listing that's already under contract, just keep in mind, if you hear mention of a divorce, that needs to be a red flag for you to reach out to your closing attorney. I've had a couple come up recently. They had just filed after going under contract. That is a very big fault in the process. So just keep that in mind for your closings coming up, that you gotta make sure where they are within the process. Have you filed? Go ahead.
I'm curious, what kind of like lunch and learn classes were agents teaching at these offices?
So a lot of times it was the value that you can provide. It's showing just the statistics for the area, and you know, just kind of giving an overview of the status of the market, because a lot of times they're not gonna realize, you know, how long it can take to be, just the value in that area, how long it can take to be on the market, just the different things about the market in general, because the attorneys aren't gonna be aware of all of that. the
So
family law.
So would you say like if there's an office in Alpharetta, they're probably only handling divorces, family law stuff in that area of Alpharetta? They're not doing stuff in the city, or, you know, vice versa?
They can do it anywhere, but typically the people are gonna try to go to somewhere that's relatively closer to the property is what I've seen. Even when I was in estate planning, I worked in Vinings, the majority of stuff was in that area. I mean, probably I would say like a 10-mile radius around.
I'm asking because you were saying if you provide stats for that area,
Yeah.
it needs to be an area that,
I would, if you're going to an office in Alpharetta, I would provide statistics for that area, yeah. If you wanna give a brief overview of Atlanta, I don't think there's any problem with that, but I would focus on that specific area where they are.
gotcha.
That's a great question. But yeah, so again, with the closing, you're gonna wanna find out where they are in that process. Are you filed? Is it pending? Is it almost about to be completed? Like, are we just waiting on the judge to sign off? Where are you with the process? Because that is gonna affect your closing and if it's proceeded now. I know I touched on this in team meeting yesterday. If you have Fulton County properties right now, give that closing attorney a call. It is a big, big deal right now. Taxes, we can try to figure something out because we can ask for a copy of the tax bill. If they have an escrow account with their lender, that can essentially show us that it was paid at whatever date it came out of the escrows. But there's gonna be a little bit more digging right now. But the thing is with Fulton right now, if there's a divorce, I'm not gonna say that it can't go through and it can't close, but it's gonna be a heck of a lot more difficult because all those filings we cannot pull right now. Our title examiner cannot pull it. And chances are it's probably a little slower right now anyway. So just kind of be on the lookout for that.
How long do you think that's gonna last?
They have not given us any kind of estimate for when it's gonna be up. I know that I think the last couple of tax bills that we had for Fulton County properties was from the end of January. So it's been coming up on a month, I want to say.
Is it hackers who are basically saying unless you give us money, we're not gonna give you this like that?
That's my understanding of it, but it's,
It's crazy.
yeah,
Isn't this the second county? Did this happen in another county a couple years ago? I think it
I
did.
think so,
Wait, did
but
you say
I.
that group?
Yeah.
Is that what's going on?
This
Oh
happened
my
in a
gosh, I
county a year or two
missed
ago. I'm pretty sure it did.
That's
crazy.
Yeah, I haven't seen their latest update, but I know that they have not been able to give us any kind of time frame or anything like that. I did hear from one of the other attorneys at our law firm that some tax bills were released, so we keep hoping it's for some of our closings, but so far it's not. And I don't know the time frame, but it's wild right now, and especially if it's got any kind of civil litigation or anything, or cases that are pending with Fulton County, those closings are typically gonna be delayed right now. And I just didn't want y'all to be surprised about that at a closing, or if you have a listing and the closing attorney is asking for documents that we normally would be asking for, that's why. Because we've gotta have your sellers helping us out a little bit right now. And the easiest thing that I've seen for the underwriters to accept is for the seller to request from their lender, and we get the payoff for a open mortgage, but to request their escrow account statement, because that's gonna show us, in November of 2023, X amount of money was pulled to pay the taxes. So that's gonna be a little bit more proof. Water bills are a little bit iffy right now. So again, but a lot of people don't keep those records. They get it in the mail and they toss it. So it's, there's different things that we're trying to accomplish, but back to the divorce part, that would be a holdup right now for both. Just to try to see what we can get from that. But again, network. The family law section is really your best bet. Googling is probably the next bet after that. Reach out to them. Let them get to know you. Attorneys though are also notorious for not answering their phone, not setting up a meeting with you. We had people at our estate planning firm that just showed up, brought stuff, brought your cards. And that's actually probably one of the better ways to get into the door. Because otherwise, they're gonna punch, I hate to say it, but it's true. They're gonna punch down the road. Oh, maybe this date, and it's gonna be further and further back. You show up and you bring stuff, I promise you they're gonna take it. Never put them, get in front of them. It's your best bet. And I hate to say that as an attorney, but it's true. They will punch you down the road a little bit. Do y'all have any questions on the divorce attorneys aspect? No, okay. We'll touch now on the debt aspect. See, so how many of y'all know a family law attorney?
Actually, I do have a question. This may not be related to getting divorce listings, but I've only had 2 divorce listings and they've already been finalized. Is there, like, if they're in the middle of a divorce, like, how does that change what I need to be doing as a listing agent?
That's a great question. So yeah, if it's already finalized, you're good. Because at that point, there's gonna be a final order, a final decree, and it's specifically tell us either who gets the property, if it's one person or the other, or how it's gonna be split between the parties. But if it's pending, the things that you're gonna wanna look out for, your first question needs to be, are you both represented by an attorney? Because if they are, there is a chance, and there still could be a holdup until it's finalized. So I'll start off by saying that. But there is a chance, if they're both represented by an attorney, they can come to an agreement on what to do with the property while the divorce is still pending. If one party is represented, one party is not represented, it's a little bit harder because the party that's unrepresented may be seen to be at a disadvantage because they may not have someone trying to get as much as they could from the proceeds of that sale. Your better chances are if they're both represented, because they could come to an agreement, it's gotta be in writing, but they can come to an agreement signed by both parties, by the attorneys, depending on all the details of the divorce. It may need to be signed off by a judge, but the attorneys could submit that regarding only the sale of the home. So that it wouldn't, delay any kind of sale for them to get proceeds and all that kind of stuff. That's gonna be the first thing. I would say the next question, without diving too much into their personal stuff, is ask them how far along they are in the process. Like, did you just file? Are y'all waiting on this? Like that kind of status is gonna kind of help you get an idea on, should we wait just a little bit until it is finalized, or how soon do you want to sell the property? I think could be one of your next questions. But yeah.
Probably best to wait until it's definitely like finalized and kind of done.
Ideally, yes, but it really depends on their situation. I mean, do they need the proceeds immediately? Are they
Yeah.
okay to wait? It really depends on their situation. If they're okay to wait, of course, ideally from a title side, yeah, it's best to have it totally finalized. We have that decree, it's totally set, whatever is set in that, we have to go by for proceeds. I've had a couple of times where they'll come up and they'll say, oh yeah, we have the decree and that's what we agreed upon, but we actually want to split it this way, but we agreed to it. We can't do that. At that point, there actually has to be an amendment signed by the judge, amending that order to say whatever they are, whatever changes that is.
I would think the risk would be if you list it before the decree's not final, is like, then how does the attorneys know like how to divide all the funds?
Well, and that's exactly why we have to have something in writing signed by parties, attorneys, potentially a judge, is because at that point, once it's sold, that's already taken out of the rest of what they're gonna be splitting from that decree. So they basically have to already know to a general extent on the rest of the stuff that they're gonna split, to know what portions to give of the home if it's not 50-50 from a sale. That's where it is ideal to have it finalized,
Yeah,
but again, those can take months, it can take a year. I mean, it depends on how messy of a divorce it is, to be blunt.
years,
Yeah, so it can take a long time,
attorney fees racking up.
yeah. So,
Yeah.
yeah, I mean, it's true. But yeah, ideally finalized, otherwise it's gotta be agreed on in writing, we can't take people's words for it. And again, they can't come to us and change it and say, well, we'll sign something at closing, that we agree to change it, you get 30,000 more. No, we cannot do that. And of course, I've had people that push back. I don't understand, we agree to it. You know what, we have a court order here, it's telling us how to split it. Yep.
So I have another question. I know you said it's probably most effective to show up to the divorce attorney's office. If we went the route of trying to contact them, do you think they'd be more responsive to email versus phone call? Or do you think they would just dump the email into the trash can and move on?
That's on the attorney. I know some that would definitely, set up an appointment, give you a good time to come in. Some, but you could always try that, and then if you're not getting responses and you're thinking they've just put it into their trash, you could always show up with stuff at that point.
I'm the guy who's been emailing for the last 3 months.
I wouldn't keep emailing it over and over and over, but, I think if you've reached out and haven't gotten a response, they'll definitely take treats. They really will. It's, you show up, it's harder to put someone off when they're in front of you than it is if they're, behind a computer screen.
Right.
It just is.
Depends how busy they are.
Yeah.
As a firm, if they're just going bunker, you're not gonna make time to go to some realtor.
Yeah, and also, you're gonna also meet their staff, you're gonna meet the people that are really interacting with them too, so make a good impression on them and they'll pass along.
Right, you have to kind of establish that.
Yeah,
relationship.
I have a divorce attorney friend who, she introduced me to her office and my last buyer just came from there too.
Yeah.
She helped her with a divorce, hooked them up, and then she bought it with me, so.
Yeah.
It's pretty cool.
It really is, people are going into the family law attorney or the divorce attorney's
Yeah.
office, and they are asking for advice. They, a lot of times, unless they know someone personally, they're gonna say, who do you recommend for this? Like, I need help.
Yep.
They're there for help. So they have to list their home if that's gonna be part of their divorce. They're most likely asked, And I mean, there's a lot of people that will ask, it's, some may not, but it's at least gonna get you a couple potential clients and closings from that. All right, so we'll touch on death and probate. How many of y'all have your estate plan set up currently? Y'all have your will, trust, ADHC, power of attorney, all the things? Y'all know what I'm saying when I give those, I'm throwing those letters out, anyone know what an ADHC is? Benefit directive? Yep, advanced directive for healthcare. So first of all, I work on estate planning attorney, so I always recommend that you have an estate plan in place, no matter how much or how little you have, or that you think you have that you own that's your assets. Always a good place, because it's gonna put your family in a better position if, in the event something happens to you, they're gonna know what your wishes were. That's already a difficult time for people when someone has passed, but not knowing and trying to guess what you think someone's wishes are is horrible. I can say that working at the estate planning attorney's office, the ones that died intestate, which means without a will, their families were at a loss at times. They did not know where to begin. Do they want to be buried? Do they want to be cremated? I mean, it's decisions like that they're like, I have no idea. We never talked about this. A lot of people don't want to talk about it because it's a tough conversation. You don't want to talk, you don't want to think about when you or a loved one is going to pass, but it's inevitable. And so it's definitely a topic that you want to discuss. You also want to get that estate plan set up. I recommend that 100%. But at an estate planning attorney's office, it's gonna be potentially the same thing. You have someone that's passed, they own a property, they could own multiple properties. At this point, a lot of times, unless the family's planning on living there, or unless could be a vacation home for them or whatnot, they're gonna wanna sell the property. So again, that's gonna be where y'all come in. Network with the estate planning attorneys, network with the probate attorneys. Most will overlap and do estate planning and probate. You kind of kill two birds with one stone there. Network with them. Come in, introduce yourself, bring in things. Again, they're listed with the Georgia Bar under the estate planning or the probate section, and you can actually see a whole list of who's in that section. But yeah, if you don't want to do that, and it's Georgia Bar, it's gabar.org. So check it out there, but also you can do the same thing, Google estate planning attorneys in whatever area you want to focus on. And meet with them, chat with them. They may already have a couple people who they are working with already, but chances are they don't. I know we had, at the firm I worked at in Vinings, we've had probably 2 realtors that would come in regularly. And I would guess at the time, probably per month, those realtors got at least 3 leads. Maybe it didn't turn out where they actually had them as their realtor representing them. They at least got 3 leads. That's good. I mean, at that point, y'all take it from there, run with it, do your thing. But network, get to know them so that you can get those leads. Again, a lot of the people that we worked with, depending on the area, had multiple properties. I mean, I know y'all would want multiple, leads per month. That's a great area to do that in. And with death as well, just to touch on the title side a little bit, if y'all do hear with your closings that someone has passed, please contact your closing attorney immediately. We've had way too many closings where, I think I've used this as an example before. I did a closing where we had all the documents finalized, the dad passed the day prior, or 2 days prior, and the daughter still signed his power of attorney for him. Y'all tell me the problem with that?
Can't be alive and well, though.
Exactly. When the person dies, that power of attorney document dies with them. Cannot use it. Can't use power of attorney for someone that is deceased. So we had this person sign all of the documents, doing the power of attorney. We get to the alive and well call and get them on the phone. And it was a very sad situation. But we at that point had to call the daughter and she said, oh, my dad died. And it was like, okay. This is gonna change a couple of things. Luckily, given the situation, luckily they held title as joint tenants. So at that point, it did not halt closing because the property reverted to her fully without having to go through probate. All we had to do at that point was request the death certificate, draft up an affidavit that she now holds title fully to the property because of that joint tenancy. And we recorded that as part of the closing, and we redrafted the documents, removing the father where it was only her. So it was okay going forward, but that kind of stuff is huge, so just be aware if someone has died, just it's not doing well, or if there's a power of attorney in place. Don't hear anything about anyone dying, all the closing attorney needs, that's definitely something you need to know about.
Are you saying when someone's signing for someone else, power of attorney, you have to call them on like the day of closing to make sure they're still alive?
Yeah.
Interesting. Okay.
It definitely, I have a lot of pushback at times on that, depending on the situation.
Who's pushing back, like the power of attorney?
It's the person who, yeah, the power of attorney, and sometimes the person who is given that power of attorney, because a lot of times they say they're out of town, they're working or whatever the case may be, and they're saying, well, I already gave them that power. Yes, you did, and that's great, but we still have to acknowledge that you still want them to sign on your behalf, that you're alive, and that you still authorize them, it hasn't been revoked. You didn't take that away, and we're not aware of that. The last thing we want is them to have had, you know, blow up fight that our attorney was executed 6 months ago. And now they don't want them to go through with that, or they're not aware of it, but they have it in place.
So do you usually call them like the day of closing?
Yep. Yep, you gotta call them the day up.
When I did that with my dad, we had to call him while we were at the closing table.
Yeah, I've tried to call people that are out of the country before. I have FaceTime with people if they're out of the country, because they can't do like a regular phone call. I've called them on WhatsApp before, done different things. The most complicated, I would say, is if it's a military one. That's been when I was in Florida, I was in the Destin office, ton of military in that area. So we did a lot of VA loans, we did, you know, just military closings in general. Those were the hardest because of the time zones, just depending on what they're doing, those were the hardest, but yeah, you were supposed to do an alive and well call anytime there's a power of attorney in place, to the person that has given that person authority to sign on their behalf.
A cousin that he and his brother, their parents passed several years ago. The estate's been probated and they have multiple properties, some commercial and of course the home place. Is there any reason tax wise or otherwise to get the properties out of the estate and titled individually into their names?
They don't have to, regarding the tax portion, they would want to contact a tax attorney or an accountant or tax advisor on that front, because it's really gonna depend on what all else they have. Like if they need to sell it all at once or spread it out a little bit, it depends on a bunch of different things for their particular situation, so that's tough. There's not like a black and white answer on that, for the tax part. For the rest of it, regarding, like, if they wanted to sell the property, they can sell it from the estate. It's already been probated, you're gonna know who has authority to sign on behalf of that estate. But it's really a personal preference. If they want to go ahead and they're gonna be the ones that the title ultimately goes to anyway, they can do it. It's just up to them. There's not like oh yeah, you need to do it within X amount of years. The only thing for an estate that you have to worry about is that all taxes on the estate, not like income taxes or anything, or inheritance taxes, but all taxes, all, liens or any kind of things on the estate, that all debts have been paid. So that's really the only thing, but once that's been done, it can stay in the estate. It just depends on if they want to wind that up or not, but that's a personal preference. I've seen people hold it in the estate for years. That's not really, it's not a big deal either way, but they may want to add some on the tax portion. Thank you. Do y'all have any other questions? Basically, the gist of this for my portion, network, grow your network, get to know people in these areas. And I promise you, they have people that are looking for this and they need to have those referrals. And y'all can definitely slide right in there, get your name, get to know them, and be on that top of the list for referral networks. Yeah.
So going back to something you talked about when you changed your name on a deed, let's say that, a husband or an unmarried couple buy a house together, they get married, one of the spouses wants to change their name on the deed. 2 years later, then they have to refile for their homestead.
Yep. Yeah, so anytime, so basically, like, I'll use myself in, my husband and my family. So we actually bought our property down in Florida unmarried. So my name was black on the deed. And if I had wanted to change my name on the deed, I could have. I just would have needed to refile for the homestead exemption. And it would have basically been from Amy Blackman to Amy Blackman, stating like with an AKA in there. But otherwise, they don't have to do anything unless it's just gonna irritate them.
You could say that's probably the preferred thing. Don't you have to pay money to do that anyways?
Yeah, I mean,
For costs incurred.
yeah, it's really gonna be, I mean, we charge like $130 to do a deed, not for deed prep, and then we do the recording as part of that as well. So, yeah, you're paying, you know, ranging from, I'd say $130 to $200, depending on where you go to get that done. You're paying for that, it's really not changing anything other than, like, if it's gonna bug them that the tax statement comes back with your maiden name. I didn't do it, it's basically just a preference for them. But my biggest thing from that is they need to be aware that if they do that, they do any kind of change on the deed, that's when they have to refile homestead. The county is not going to investigate and see that it's the same people still owning it, they're gonna see a different name, and they're gonna say, oh, ownership changed, homestead exemption falls off. The ideal thing and what we did when we sold the property, we just did the formerly known as language on there. Closing attorney handles that. All they're gonna ask for is a copy of the marriage certificate and you're done. No extra fees or anything like that.
Gotcha. Cool.
All right. Any other questions on the class today? All right. Well, if y'all do have questions, again, you've got all our contact information up here. Please reach out. My only request is that if I haven't already texted or called you before, tell me who you are. If you're shooting me a text or you're calling me, let me know who you are, because I get a ridiculous amount of spam calls, spam, all the things. And I usually try to not answer those. I don't like to get sucked into the spam calls. So just let me know who you are so I can save you a victim. And then after that, it's free game.
Thank you.
Thank you
Thank you
very much. Thank you for donuts.
Yes.
Well,
Yes.
Not that I need to be eating that.
Alright, make sure that.
Dina, what time is your class? 11:30? Okay.
And really, she just handled it for me, so we could just go home now.
Yeah. I try very much.
What?
Just like a random guy.
Yeah.
Like a restaurant? Just walked in. What time is it?
Like 3 in the morning.
I'm going.
Yeah, like, there was not. Yeah, they all stopped. They had to stop.
Yeah, but this still like my life. People were like, oh.
Thank God. Yeah. But I'm so I couldn't find that out. I just wanted to walk my. You know, I'm like, this is big dude, you know, not very strong, but I feel it. And then I bring all the blood. So, but I just know that, but I'm sure you what. So when he fell on me, he broke my ribs, his leg, and I couldn't get it up. 45 minutes. Always looking out. Yes, we, when I got done. No, well, I was there with my mother. It took about 9 hours. That's great.
Oh, he came.
Yeah.
So sorry. You had to go.
But you know, I'm like, oh my God. So I'm not visiting, you know. All that, but I'm like, oh my God. I just. I couldn't drive. If I had whatever was going on, after that, I was sure or whatever. It was just exciting. It's hard. You know, you gotta get done. You know. And this was very cool. I really wanted
Like something like that.
yeah, I know. But so, you know, for the guys, I'm gonna have an idea about, you know, the support manager, I thought I was gonna buy that, you know, I mean, I feel really bad, but I think I still. You know, like, they're just starting out, well, you know, I'm gonna they'll see what I'm So how do we? Yeah, I think I'm looking at more detail, but I think. Almost seems like that is like what's so bad. It was a lot. Yeah, it's very starting.
Showing.
Every time we have something, I'm gonna check. You good? Okay, cool. We have to have permission to do that. Yeah, you have to have permission to promote. Well, I'll just go right here. Thank you, sorry, you know. Sure, you can have that. Yeah, right. Well, I'm sure both.
I used to do that a lot.
And I've had a lot, buyers from, I mean, I have a lot going on. So it's separate from. I got one right now. I've got some, but it's just. I started with your,
Yeah, it was just something like.
You.
Oh,
Somebody would say.
Yeah, the one that.
Oh, yeah. We talking about.
Yeah. I'll see you later. So I have someone in my body mind, but they don't live here, so that's what I'm saying.
Oh, yeah.
Because that's what it's supposed to be. I mean, that's how they are. I just got 40 years and now they're in, Virginia, Washington. We're no way, I have 6 of them pending, they're supposed to, I mean, I have probably referrals. I don't know. That's my husband's retired. Yeah. 12. And it was a conversation.
Did you get paid on all this? That's awesome.
Yeah, I mean, there's some of them were, I mean, it was, one was like. Another one had one car and. And maybe like all of them. Easy money, I'll send them.